This is the Reporter's Notebook, hosted by Elaine Shane.
Welcome to this entry in the DTN Reporter's Notebook. DTN Markets Editor Katie Misick joins us today as we look at the results of the DTN, the Progressive Farmer Ag Confidence Index. Katie, briefly tell us, first of all, how this survey is done.
We survey 500 farmers and ranchers from across the country and try to have our results roughly match the latest Ag Census results, so we're getting a good cross-sample of the agriculture economy. We did that earlier on in the month of August, and we saw some really interesting results this time, Elaine.
And you do it 3 times a year, too.
We do it 3 times a year, before planting, before harvest, and then at the end of the year to see how attitudes change throughout the growing season.
So let's touch on the highlights. First of all, with the producers, what did you see there for the overall Ag Confidence Index, and how did that compare with the past?
Our overall index actually came in at a negative or pessimistic value at 99.4. So our threshold of neutral is 100. We set that back in April of 2010. So when we look back, we say this is probably one of the roughest times ag producers have seen since then. We all know that the 1980s were a little bit of a longer downside spell, but this is a really tough time for farmers right now.
So what did they say about their current situation versus their expectations, and how did that compare to the past?
What we found there was very interesting. This is the lowest ratings farmers have ever given for their present situation index. So when they're really not feeling good right now, and they're looking ahead and saying, you know, it's not that great either. You compare it to where they were in March, and that's a big shift because they were even a little bit more positive about the present situation before the crop got in the ground. They had a little bit of a different perspective on prices at that point in time. And right now, farmers are really just not feeling good about input costs or their farm incomes.
Now let's go a little deeper into some of those results. Did you see any differences by region, or whether it's crops versus livestock?
We saw a lot regionally. Really, crop producers are the ones who are not feeling good right now. Their index value was pretty low. It was also negative, but then when you look at the index value for Midwestern farmers, it was startlingly low. It was at 94. Their present situation was rated below a 90 for the first time since we've done the index. So Midwest producers and crop producers are really feeling the pinch of low prices right now.
Let's turn to the agribusinesses. What did their overall index come out?
The overall index came in at 92, which is the lowest since we began taking this survey. And that really, to me, reflects sort of their concerns about farm incomes and what farmers are going to be doing in the year ahead to try and make sure their farms are profitable. A lot of farmers are already thinking about cutting back on stacked seed traits. They haven't bought much equipment, and they're not likely to buy much equipment. So there's a lot of concern among agribusinesses right now about how farmers will spend their money. We've had 2 other negative readings in that index before, and I think it's interesting to point out that in 2011, in August, there were a lot of macroeconomic concerns that weighed on businesses. They were concerned about the dollar. And then in 2012, there was a lot of uncertainty around the drought. They didn't know if farmers were going to get crop insurance payments. So this is one where I see it as maybe a shifting tides in agribusiness, because this is really related to concerns about how farms are financing and whether they're going to be able to buy the same amount of inputs and things that they have in years past.
Now again, for the agribusinesses, what are they saying about the current situation versus their expectations, and how does that compare with the past? Most
of the businesses are saying, things are okay right now. They're saying, everything's normal. There's a little bit of an uptick compared to last August on those who say it's bad. But for the most part, 62% of agribusiness say they expect their profitability to be the same a year from now. There is a growing percentage of those, however, who thinks that it will be worse. About 24% said they think their profitability will be lower next year.
So for the agribusinesses, what do they say was the biggest factors for them?
I think the biggest factor for them is just going to be what farmers can afford to put into their inputs this year. A lot of farmers are looking at cutting back on their seed costs, either by not going with the triple stack traits, going with double stacks. They're looking at ways to economize without sacrificing yield. So the businesses that are on the side that help producers do that, either by advanced agronomy type services or brokerage and marketing services, those are the types of businesses that are feeling good right now. It's the equipment dealers and some of the other input suppliers that are going to feel the pinch.
Thanks, Katie.
Thanks, Elaine.
With Katie Misick, I'm Elaine Shane, and that's today's entry in the DTN Reporter's Notebook. Thanks for joining us, and have a good evening from DTN.
This has been the Reporter's Notebook from the DTN Progressive Farmer Newsroom.